Hi everyone, welcome back to our channel. Donita and Editor here.
Welcome.
And today we have a guest, Anthony Walker. Anthony, whether it's through his coaching or his speaking and training, he helps fun, successful people become the best version of themselves and enjoy a life of freedom. Welcome, Anthony. Lovely to have you here today.
Thank you very much. Thank you, both of you. I think this is going to be fun. So, I liked helping people. I like helping empower people and show them that they can impact their lives, that they can make a difference in their lives. And one of the ways I do that is with coaching. I do that as a consultant. I do that as a speaker. And I really like starting with who we are individually, which is a spiritual being, right? We are spiritual beings, whether we know that or not, and we're having this human experience. Now, we're human beings. We're not human doings. And a lot of times we get caught up, we get confused. We think that, oh, I need to do more to have value or be worthwhile, instead of just being ourselves. As spiritual beings, we are connected to source. We are part of the creator. And that means that we are creators, each of us. And it's an important distinction. If we think we're powerless, it's because we've forgotten that we are part of source, part of spirit, and we are naturally able to generate and manifest and create what we want for ourselves. And I facilitate that with people. Now, a little bit about me. I grew up in Southern California at the beach. My parents were college educated and they loved me a lot. And I went to college and I traveled throughout Europe for a year. And then I moved to Hawaii and I started a business and I partied a lot. I had a really good time from what I remember. And then I discovered it was a problem. It was impacting my life in a lot of negative ways. And to my horror, I discovered I couldn't stop. And it was awful. And then something miraculous happened. I actually asked for help. And when I asked people for help, they said, you can do this, but you have to do it a certain way. Now, two huge lessons came out of that for me. One of them is you become who you hang out with. If you're having problems with your life and you're hanging out with people that have problems in their life, nothing's going to change. But when you start hanging out with people that want to improve themselves, that want to relieve themselves of their alcohol problem, and they want to get their lives together, then the same thing. That's the first lesson. The second lesson is I can work on myself and improve my life. And I'm responsible for that, nobody else. And that was huge for me. That was almost 35 years ago. And so I've been working on myself ever since. Now, what I like to do with clients, for example, is ask them to take a look at the areas of their life that are important to them. Now, we have four main areas. We have health and we have wealth, we have love, we have happiness, right? And some of those areas work well. Some of them are not working as well as we would like them to. And so what I'd like you to do when you have some time is write down those four areas: health, wealth, love, happiness, and then assign a number value to them. Scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest or best, right? And be really honest with yourself. Don't just say, oh, it's good enough. Be really straight with yourself. And those areas that are working, they might be sixes or sevens or eights, and you feel like, hey, I'm making progress here. Some of the other areas will not be as high, and you go, yeah, that's kind of a problem. So here's what I'd like to work on immediately. Take one of those areas. It's your choice, right? And this is completely private. You don't have to share this with anyone. Take those areas with a low number, not the lowest one, whatever you want to work on immediately. and see and think for yourself, is there something I can do in the next couple hours, maybe a couple days, maybe a week, and take that from a 3 to a 4 or a 4 to a 5 and immediately change that part of your life. Now, the irony is the areas of our life that are doing well are the ones we spend the most time and effort on. Sometimes we get resigned. Sometimes we go, yeah, I know. I can't do anything about that. And then you stop. You stop putting effort on it. We stop being creators and we stop being responsible for having anything we want for our lives. Because that's what I do as a coach. I help people go after anything they want. And you look at me and go, you're ridiculous. I can't have anything I want. Hear me out. When I work with a client, first thing I want to do is get to know them, what they're up to in life, what are their goals. And someone might say, well, I have a goal and I want to buy a new car. It's like, okay, you should have a new car. What do you want? Well, I want a Ford Mustang. It's like, okay, those are good cars, right? You should have that. I said, do you have a car now? Yeah. What is it? Well, it's a Ford Mustang. How long have you had your Ford Mustang? Well, 4 years. How old's the car? 4 years old. So you bought a new car 4 years ago, and now you want to buy another new car. That's not really a goal. That's kind of a to-do item on your checklist because you already know how to do it. Here's my point. A goal is not to get something. A goal is to expand yourself to attract those bigger things to you. Here's another example. The first one might be an average goal, a C grade, like an average grade at school. This next one's a B grade. It's above average, but it's not really where I'm going with this example. Let me show you. This is a replica of a Mercedes. It's an S-Class, it's an AMG, it's a $150,000 car. Now, if you've never bought one of these before, but you think you could probably figure it out, like, well, what would you do? How would you go about that? It's like, well, I need to work on my down payment. I need to make sure my credit is at the right level. I need to work on my debt to income ratio, and maybe mommy needs to co-sign for it, right? Somehow you can figure out how to get this expensive car. That's just an above average goal because you think you can figure it out. It's not that much of a stretch. Here's an example of what I would call an A-level goal. This is really a worthy goal that will have you completely out of your comfort zone and stretch. My goal is a house on the sand. I live in Panama City, Florida. There are beach homes up in a neighborhood called 30A, and they're all on the sand. They're all private communities. They're expensive. They're millions and millions of dollars, which I don't have. But I want a beach house. Well, why? One, I want to live on the sand. I want to live on the beach. But two, I've got grandkids, and I want them to track their sandy feet through my house. I want them to grow up at grandpa's house at the beach. I want them to have those memories. That lights me up. That excites me about my goal. And that's really the key. So an A-level goal is something that scares the hell out of you. I don't have any idea how I'm going to do that, but that's what I want. It's not about being in our heads and being logical and figuring it out. It's about wanting it, which is a different part of us. It's from our heart. That's where our feelings come from. When I want that so much, then I change my vibration and the universe then rises to the occasion and I start attracting to me what I want. And this really works. This is what I've been doing.
So I have a
Right?
question. I have a
Yes.
question. Years ago,
Adita in the
yes.
front row. Yes. What can I do?
So uh, you started that you realized at some point at your life that you have a problem.
Yes.
So what was the problem and what happened that all of a sudden you realize that it's something not right?
So I'm in Hawaii and I'm partying with a bunch of friends and we're drinking and we're doing other things and we're having at one time a really good time. And then I discovered that I couldn't stop, right? And you kind of ignore it and think you can get away with it. At least I thought I could get away with it. And the quality of my life disintegrated bit by bit. It impacted every area of my life. It impacted my work, it impacted my finances, impacted my health. Uh, Honolulu Police Department said I had a problem. There were a number of things there that would have me say, oh crap, I've got to stop. And then I found that I couldn't. And then I asked for help.
So, because you asked for help, and that was just a regular help, like, people with alcohol, they just go to
Mm-hmm.
AA, or was something else besides that?
So specifically, I made a phone call at the time, which was 1989. There was a treatment center run by the Schick Razor Company, and they had recovery centers in the US. And they had an 800 number and a commercial on TV. And it's 10 o'clock in the morning, and I'm hungover, and I said, this is it. I'm done. And this commercial came up, and I made a phone call. And they said, well, we have our treatment programs. It's like, I'm not working. I don't have insurance. Like, I don't know what the hell to do. And they said, well, by happy coincidence, 25 miles away from you, we have an outpatient program, and it's 6 months long, and there's a sliding fee scale, and like everything just aligned. I called them, I did an intake session. I started working again and started making some money, and I made payments to them every Friday when I got paid. And I was in that program for 6 months, and it changed everything. It changed everything. The scope and depth of the education, it included 12-step programs on the weekends, but was 5 nights a week from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. Again, 25 miles from my home, right? So I'm riding my motorcycle up there to be there on time, riding home after 10 o'clock at night, and then going to work every day, right? And so the combination of the education and the practice and the training made a gigantic difference. It turned things around. And like anything, you take things one step at a time, one day at a time, sometimes 5 minutes at a time when things get rough. And you pull yourself out of where you're at. Now, my coaching company is called Good to Great Coaching. There's a reason. It's directly personal to me. I found personally that when my life was in a bad place, it's really motivating, really easy to get motivated to change your life, to take it from bad to good. There's a lot of motivation there. Here's what happens though. Happened to me, it happens to everybody I talk to. They get to a place where their life works, where they're comfortable, where things are much easier, and they take their foot off the gas and they go, oh, I'm going to be comfortable now. I worked so hard in the past. I want to take it easier now. And they don't realize that they can keep their foot on the gas and continue going for those A-level goals that I spoke about. So that's what my coaching does. I've been to the bad part, but I've also seen that most people, they lose incentive. It's like, oh, it's too hard, it's easy. It's like, well, wait a minute, right? Did it matter how hard it was when life was bad? We don't grow when things are easy. We just don't. But we want things to be easy because we're human, and that's how we're wired apparently, right? And to
That's
say
right.
one more thing about that, because a lot of people, the perfectionists, the people that are hard on themselves, they don't understand yet that human beings are imperfect, and therefore we're perfectly human, right? And so we have a hard time not beating ourselves up. Oh, I didn't do it right. I didn't do the, fourth set at the gym. I didn't do everything perfectly. It's like, that's how we're wired. We need to learn to be patient and kind with ourselves. We need to understand how we really are instead of what we've made up that we should be. That answer your question?
Yes. And going back to what you just said, it's like when we work on ourselves, At some point we feel like, yeah, I'm going to take my foot off the gas pedal and everything is going to be okay. But your story is different because you never took your foot off from the pedal. You are keep pushing the pedal because so many people, they had an addiction or kind of addiction, they went back to the same issues. So
Hmm.
for addiction, so for a while they were okay, but at some point they forgot, like a human being, they didn't do anything with themselves and they are again back at the same spot. So your story is different because you never went back
Hmm.
to the previous moment, the moment you started from. You
Right.
realize I have an issue and I'm going to do everything what is in my power
Hmm.
to change my life.
What, and that takes a lot of will.
Yes.
So a question about that is like, what empowered you to continue, almost like harnessing the will, the power of pushing the gas and going forward and believing in yourself, believing in that A plus goals, and in like getting your life from bad to good, from good to better, from better to great, you know?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
what's the nugget here? What's the secret that you
Well,
can share with us?
this is a great question, and some of it will be simply fear. When I was in that place and I couldn't stop my alcohol use, I was afraid I couldn't change. I was afraid I was stuck, and that was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. And again, someone said, "Yes, you can change, but you have to do it a certain way." And when I came out of the other side of that, here's an example I've used before. If a normal person gets ill and they have whatever symptoms and maybe they're out from work or whatever for a little bit, and then when they recover, when they heal, when they get better, then they go back to the way they were before. I found that when I healed, when I recovered, my life was better than it had ever been. And that was so eye opening to me. That was so inspiring to me. It's like, you mean I can keep doing this? And that's really what happened. Like those four areas I talked about: health, wealth, love, and happiness. You can't do everything all at once. You can spend a lifetime working on all of those and raise them all up to a level that you wanted. So it takes some time, and then you see the improvement in the areas that you're willing to spend time or able to spend time. We only have 168 hours a week. That's all we got. So whatever we're focusing our time and effort on is where we're going to improve. So that's what I did. Now, part of what I mentioned earlier is you become who you hang out with. Now, one of the things I did a number of years ago is make a lot of money in real estate because I'm hanging around with people making money in real estate. I'm learning what they learned. I'm practicing what they're practicing. I'm making the mistakes they're making. And then you learn, you grow. Okay. So it's like that with anything, right? I moved to Florida from Costa Rica about a year and a half ago. Now, I lived in the jungle on the Nicoya Peninsula for a year and a half. It was the perfect storm. Costa Rica had shut down international travel because of COVID, and I'm out exploring, right? And so I called somebody who had a Airbnb right on the cliff, 300 feet above the most beautiful beach I've ever seen. And I asked if I could stay for a few days. He goes, "Sure." And then a few days later, I called him, and because I'd never met this guy, and I said, "Can I stay for a week?" He goes, "You can stay as long as you want." And at the end of the week, I thought, I think this is it. I think this is the place that I'm looking for to live. And I called him, and he didn't have any other business. And he said, "Well, we should probably meet before I rent this to you long term." And we did. And we talked for 8 hours. And we decided we liked each other a lot. And I lived there for a year and a half. And it changed my whole life. I mean, I'm in the jungle, meaning there's monkeys and there's toucans in my yard, like the whole deal. I'm 20 minutes away from the nearest town. on shitty dirt roads. And I have my 4-wheel drive truck and I'm driving like a maniac. It was the time of my life. It was absolutely magical. And then I learned that I learned two things. One, in my practices, in my meditation and my studies, I would sit out on this deck overlooking this beach. And you have to understand that on a 300-foot cliff, when I'm looking down 100 feet on the treetop canopy, these are 200-foot trees, and they've got a canopy that kind of looks like broccoli, right? So I'm looking down at that, and there's seabirds soaring over it, and I can see dolphin in the water half the time, and it's just like, I had this epiphany, and it was so interesting because you sit there and you look at this beauty, and then something happened, and I realized that nature is just spirituality in 3 dimensions. And I'm part of all of it. I'm part of the sea breeze. I'm part of the waves. I'm part of the birds. I'm just connected with all of it. And I realized that's what I'd come there for. It changed everything. And then I set a goal of, I want to move near my family. During COVID, my second grandchild was born, and I wasn't able to travel and see him at his birth. It was not something that made me happy. I'll put it that way. And so I decided I wanted to move next to family, and I wanted to go help people. And so you fast forward a couple of years, and I'm certified as a coach and a consultant, and I live in a new home, and I'm a couple minutes away from the kids. So putting that into practice is just part of what I think I've always done. Like, what do you want to do? And then go work on it. And it doesn't mean I'm always motivated. I've had some setbacks and things like that, but I always know that I can find a way to where I want to go. And that's just something I've developed over 30 years of practice, gain that confidence. It's kind of like, if you wanted to go jump off a cliff, most people would go look for a parachute or a hang glider or something. And it's like, I just jump and I look for a parachute on the way down. And some people think I'm nuts. And I may be wired differently than some people, but maybe I've just gained that confidence with the experience I've had of doing hard things and coming out the other side.
So we are going back to what you said before, letting go of fear
And trusting.
and trust.
There's plenty of things to be afraid of, but you can't let it stop you. I don't know of anybody that's going to say, oh, I'm not afraid of anything. I think that's bullshit. I think that the reality is you can be afraid of something and do it anyway, right? You can be afraid of something and not know how you're going to figure it out, but you take one step in front of the other and you figure it out on the way, right? It's like in the military, we would have a policy around making decisions. You don't wait till you have 100% of the information. It takes too long. You get about what you think is about 70% of the information, and that's good enough. Good enough to make a decision, and you change your course or set a direction that way, right? You just can't collect all the information. Exactly.
And then you jump.
And it's about the action. Right? Because being in your head and collecting information and getting on the internet and researching and all that stuff, that's fine, but you don't get anywhere. I'd rather try and fail something and then try something again. At least you have the experience. I got this far before I hit an obstacle and I stopped, right? Failure doesn't mean anything about me. It's just one way that I can't do something. You know what I mean? A lot of people say, oh, I can't fail. I can't try because I might fail. Well, it has nothing to do with you. But we make up that it does. Right? I fail all the time. And that's why I succeed, because I'm not afraid to try.
Yeah, that's due to our programming and our belief system that we learned before. And like you said, when you don't pay attention to it, you just go forward. And you are going to figure out on your way.
But it takes a lot of trust.
Yes.
But it's more than that. It's also the environment that you are with. It goes twice. I've mentioned now. You become who you hang out with. If you're around a bunch of scared people that never do anything, They're going to pull you back. They're not comfortable with you trying something different because it might shine a light on their inability to do what you want to do. There's perfect examples of that. Some people say, "Oh, I want to start a business and I want to go do whatever," and people go, "Oh, you can't do that. Your uncle tried that 20 years ago and he failed, so you don't have a chance." It's like, what does that have to do with anything? But that's your environment that doesn't support you to go after your dreams. So find a new environment.
Mm-hmm.
But it starts in your head. Like I said earlier, if you consider yourself to be a failure because you failed to do something, then we've got to start with the inner landscape first. That's why being patient with yourself, that may be new for some people. Speaking kindly to yourself, that may be new to some people. But I promise you this, if you learn to be kind to yourself, if you can be good and nurture yourself, yes, you're going to make a mistake. You know what you say? Oops. And you move on.
Yeah.
And you move on, because when you start to love yourself and care for yourself, you don't allow anybody outside of you to do anything else. You will not allow someone to treat you badly if you treat yourself well. You'll simply move that person out of your life. Okay? So you've got to start with the inner landscape and then be responsible for your environment. And the environment doesn't necessarily want people to change. They want everybody to do the same thing. Go to work, pay your bills, right? They don't have room in their thinking for visionaries. So you have to find the right people to hang out with, people that will support you to do that.
That's beautiful, Anthony. And that's just the last few minutes before we wrap up. That's a beautiful message. That's a beautiful story.
Empowering.
And empowering. And is there anything that comes to you, any nuggets that you would like to share with our audience today before we kind of finish for today?
Well, going back to the example about your health and wealth and love and happiness and working on those areas, I actually know what everybody wants. Everybody wants more, right? If they have a life that's good, right? They may want a bigger home. May want more money. May want more love or more romance or more sex, right? I want more grandkids. I don't know what I'm going to do about that, but like, everybody wants more, and it's entirely possible. But you have to start putting yourself in the frame of mind that that is possible, and then start raising your vibration. You start feeling that. It's not about being in your head. Remember, the difference that I learned in the jungle was the difference between our head and our heart, right? I can tap into my spirituality by dropping into my heart. And it's a recent acquisition. It's a couple of years ago, right? So being able to feel things as if I've already accomplished my house at the beach and I've got sandy footprints running in the back door again. I've told them so many times to wipe their feet. I don't care, right? I want my grandkids there, right? That's what motivates me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what raises my vibration. And other people can do that too. That is what I do as a coach.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Anthony. And
so where people can find you.
So if anybody, exactly. So if anybody would like to get to know you better or find, connect one-on-one, schedule time with you one-on-one, how can they find you? What's the best way? And of course, we're going to add the links in the comments, but if you can just tell us who you are.
In that link, you'll find access to my Facebook page. I've got a personal page. You can follow what I do. I've got a coaching page there. I've got an Instagram page with the same thing with coaching. I have a Calendly page where you can actually sign up for a free introductory conversation. And what I'll do is I'll ask you some questions. I'll tell you a little bit about my coaching program, and then we'll both know if this is a good fit. And if this is a good fit, I'm going to ask you to work with me. Right? I can help you. I can really help. So
that's beautiful.
Come check me out.
That's absolutely. Come check Anthony out. And Anthony, thank you so much for being here with us today and sharing your powerful, uplifting, empowering, heart-filling, inspiring story, because I'm sure many will find it very useful and will there is lots of nuggets that they can apply and will hopefully will apply into their lives. And one
And so many people can relate to your story also.
absolutely, because this is very human.
Yes.
And just wanted to actually, before we finish, I wanted to mention that Anthony will join us in the future, and there is more to
Thank you.
come on, discussing conversations. So thank you so much for being here, Anthony, and till next time.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Bye. Bye,
Bye for
everyone.
now.
Much love.